welcome to this video on my 27 lessons in 27 years. This video, of course, is going to be posted this Thursday, and this Thursday is my birthday. So anyone who knows me pretty well, you'll know that I actually just love birthdays. So today I will be getting ready to fly out to Venice. I'm so excited. But what I wanted to do this Thursday is then just really reflect on my 27 years so far and what I have learned. These are hopefully things that you can potentially relate to, maybe you could also learn from. And if you agree or disagree, do just drop them in the comments box below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And of course, I by no means have learned everything. Before we get into it, I do just want to mention that I am going to be covering all aspects of life. So in no particular order, let's just get straight into it. So starting off with one of my favourite mottos, that is trust the timing of your life. And I think that is just so important, because I think what is for somebody else may not potentially be for you at that time. I think we've grown up in the system where everybody goes to school at the same age, everyone potentially goes to uni at the same age, but then after that everything's different for everyone, and you kind of look around and you think, whoa, like this is a bit weird. And I guess in my life I did kind of have timings and things in my head for, you know, ages that I wanted to get married, wanted my first child and things, and it is a lot later than I actually thought, but it's one of those where you do just need to trust it and just go with it. I do also want to mention as well that those things, honestly, they are pretty out of your control, and if you do get them spot on how you want it, then you are pretty lucky. So my second lesson is another motto, and that's everything happens for a reason. And I know many don't believe in that, but I kind of like it because I think it just keeps you positive. And for example, if there is a rejection, so I've been rejected from my firm in uni, I missed out by a grade, 3 A's wasn't enough. But then what that led me to is the uni and the path that I've currently gone down, and I don't think I would have achieved a lot of what I have had I not gone to the uni that I did and met the people that I did and just went through these experiences. So that is also why I want to kind of share that I believe rejection is actually redirection, and I definitely think that's the case. For example, I did actually get rejected from another Big Four firm and then got accepted at mine, and I think if I had not gone through that, I don't think I again would be in this position. I don't think I would have made manager so early. I guess you don't know that, but it's just something that I think is just quite nice to think about in that way. And I guess you might not always find out what the reason is straight away, but I think hopefully in the end things do kind of start to fall in place. So third on the list, and this is something that I've started to really resonate with recently, but it is to actually protect your energy. I think it just really is so important to just prioritize what's important to you, and I think sometimes you do just need to learn and say no, even in kind of difficult situations, but you do just really need to put yourself first and protect your energy, because burning out is just not the one. So the next one that I actually want to touch on, so number 4, it's actually that we don't really know what a person's going through. So I think growing up, we're kind of taught that things are right or wrong, and it's black and white. But I think as I've grown up, I've realized that there are actually a lot of grey areas that you wouldn't initially think that there are. But it really helps to just understand someone's feelings in that situation and what kind of led them into these certain paths that they've gone down. And you can kind of then empathize and realize that actually, although initially if you just kind of hear what's happened, you might think, why would you do that? You actually do just then really understand. And I think it's just so important then to just really try not to judge. I know it's easier said than done, but I think we can kind of be quite harsh with things. So I won't really go into any kind of specifics in terms of those types of situations, but if I just take a step back and just even think with like really simple things. So growing up, my sister, she's a bit older than I, and she started wearing makeup earlier than I did, and I thought, whoa, why are you doing that? And then of course a couple of years later I was doing the same thing. That's just a really basic example, and it's not really going into the whole right or wrong aspect, but it's just again something that I wanted to share. The next thing that I've realized is actually your views and wants in life are actually likely to change as you grow up, and that's okay. So like I mentioned in the first part with trust the timing of your life, I thought that I wanted things a lot earlier in life than I actually do now. So this is just personal to me, but previously I thought I'd want my first child when I was 28, and that's literally next year. And where I am right now, I just don't think that is what I would want. Obviously it's like great for other people and it works for them, but just for me personally, I think I still just want more time. So yeah, you might find that things start to change, and that is honestly okay. And in those instances as well, it's probably good to just be a bit flexible and adapt, because I mean things might not always go your way, but as long as you're kind of, you know, just going with it, then it should be all right. So the next one, and one thing I've definitely learned as I've grown up, is health is honestly wealth. I just cannot stress that enough. I think when I was younger, I was much thinner. I was actually like very on the underweight side, and I just really didn't prioritize my health. I'd just be quite lazy with my eating. I wouldn't eat very well. But then it was literally about when I was 20, I started actually getting into the gym, and that's just been so helpful for me, both physically and mentally. It's just something that's worked really well for me, and that's not for everyone. People can have their other kind of preferences, for example, running or, you know, yoga, things like that. But just keeping active is honestly so important, because I've had those few moments where I've been ill and I've just thought, this is not it. I still definitely do have things to work on there though. So for example, I started doing 10k steps a day, and now I've just really fallen off. So I need to just get back on, because apparently steps increases your life expectancy, so why not? So number 7, and what links to health, is actually something that I realized pretty recently. So I've always pretty much eaten, since going to the gym, pretty clean, and there's times when I've been really restricted. So I'd like to apologize to my brother when I refused the first cake that he actually made in school. Yeah, see, you can kind of see the mindset that I was in, and recently I've done a fitness plan, and it's just very restrictive, and I just found that I missed out on a lot of things, actually, just kind of really good social environments and things. I really held back, and that's fine if that's for you, but I think for me it just doesn't work for long periods of time, and it does just set me back. So I think what I've learned is that doing it for a long period of time probably isn't sustainable, and it's good to just kind of do it in bursts. And linking to that, what I also learned is that my skin just cannot handle these types of diets, and I will just flare up with all this sort of eczema, and I've got blogs about it, so do check them out, because it just goes to show how much diet really does impact your skin. So the next thing that I want to touch on is that I feel like in these years I've actually learned how to be quite smart with my money and my savings. So I actually do have a finance tracker. The link is in the description below, and you should definitely check that out. But through that, I've managed to save a lot of my monthly income. But I think what I've also found is just not to get caught up too much in that. Like, I don't want to ever come across as stingy or anything. You kind of need to know when you need to spend and when it's okay to kind of spend on things. I guess it's also just about knowing what's important and knowing when it's okay to kind of actually treat yourself as well, and, you know, give yourself things that you do deserve, because that's also important as well. So yeah, I'm really honestly here to just share everything that I have kind of learnt with you. So do definitely check out that finance tracker, and I have got a blog all about that, and I'll turn it into a video soon, so make sure you do subscribe if you're interested in that. I think also that experiences, traveling, things like that are just priceless. There is just so much in life that you can see, that you can do, different cultures, things that you just won't experience without traveling, and I think it's just so important to see that. So if I ever do get the opportunity to travel, I probably will. I've also found that it's just so much more important to do that now, whilst I can, while I'm hopefully still young and, you know, able, with less responsibility. And so that is why I would definitely just really encouraging travel as early as possible. You can honestly also just learn so much from it, and you just really don't know where it will take you, what kind of doors it would open. And yeah, it's just worth doing. I guess one thing I never really did was a year abroad. I did a placement year in London, but I didn't really do a year abroad, and I think that would have been so good. So if you do have the opportunity for that, I would really recommend it. Number 10, and another thing that I've kind of learned and seen just as I've grown up, is that gatekeeping's become like a real thing now, where it's like, you know, I'm not going to tell them where this is from and X, Y, and Z. But what I've just found is that honestly just sharing your knowledge and things really does just help, and it goes a long way. And you know what, when I actually started doing Jag's journey, I actually wanted it to be kept anonymous. I didn't really want people to know kind of who I was and just things like that. I'm not really sure why. It's probably just because it is actually just a bit weird just really putting yourself out there like that. But it's when I spoke to a good friend of mine, and he just said people like to connect with a person, and so he said just go with it. And to be honest, I'm so glad I did. I just started off with the blog and then just slowly built it up, and just more and more things just have come about now. And I think it's just so nice to really just share your knowledge, and people do really appreciate that. So if you do kind of have any things that you are knowledgeable on, and you know what, you'll be quite surprised, because there's actually a lot of things that you've probably done that isn't actually normal to other people. So definitely do share if you can. And if you are interested in actually creating a website, I'm able to help with that. So there's a blog description below, and also a whole PDF sharing it. But I think I will soon actually create a YouTube video on that. So again, make sure you do subscribe. So next on the list, we have expectations. And okay, really jumping about here now with these different lessons, but whatever. Next on the list is definitely expectations. I've just found that having expectations and really just setting your sights on something and, you know, having a kind of bar, I think it often actually leads to disappointment. So that's like, for example, if you think you're going to have this really, really good party and then it just doesn't go to plan, or it's just not as good as you thought, it's kind of like a downer on the situation. That's why I think it's kind of just really good to just expect the bare minimum. And it goes just beyond that as well. It's not just to do with, you know, parties and things and events. It actually goes to relationships, and I think this is where it can have actually a detrimental impact on relationships, because once you start expecting things from someone because of, you know, how you value them, I think that's where things can go wrong, because I think what you expect of others, they might not think is the expectation of them. So for example, everyone kind of sees things differently, where you might think, oh, a best friend has to do this, or a best friend has to kind of be like this. And I think that expectation puts pressure on the situation, and I think I've really learned from that, and I should accept that people are different, people do things differently. Of course, keep your standards high and things like that, but do just also kind of know that if you are setting expectations that are quite high, you are more likely to be disappointed. I feel like I've kind of learned that a bit the hard way. So number 12 is loyalty. So loyalty is definitely important, and this goes for all relationships, friends, family. But what I found is it's actually important to make your own decision and not to be too swayed. I think I've been in situations before where I've been very loyal to someone and then it's actually kind of backfired on me. Giving, for example, a really little example is if you've got friends and they fall out, and then you kind of pick a side, and then, you know, you might unfriend, unfollow, whatever the others. But then what you might not realize is actually you put yourself in an awkward situation, because they might become friends again. So I think just kind of be careful with your loyalty. Really make sure that you're doing things because it's your own decisions and you're really backing those. Number 13, you are just never too young to learn, and I'll just keep it at that. Next then, I want to actually talk about bucket lists. I just love them. I think it really gives you some things that are just worth living for. I've had skydiving on my list before and it was just amazing. And I think I've just continued to kind of add things, and now I think I want to go in a hot air balloon. That would be really cool. But yeah, I think bucket lists are just honestly great. So number 15, setting goals helps get things done. I actually recently read that there are 3 different ways that you can set goals. So it can be input goals, so, you know, doing 2 hours of something a week, or for example, outputs and needing to have written 2,000 words by the end of the week, or then also what you actually want to get from it. For example, if you want to kind of get that A star, I think what kind of works for me is actually the second one. So the one where I kind of want to get something done by a certain time, because I know then I'll have to do what I need to make sure it's done. It goes for my YouTube videos, it goes for my book. I think that just really does work for me. I think without these goals, I would kind of lose direction. I'd probably procrastinate and things would just get put off. So that is honestly why I just love goals, but it of course really helps to make them realistic and just make sure that you're mentally prepared for what it involves. So next we have family. I just think family is just so important. It might not always, you know, be perfect, but I think just having the best intentions and really wishing the best for each other, I think it just really helps that family relationship, and it's just so nice. I think though with a family relationship, you do kind of need to be careful that you aren't being taken advantage of and kind of know when enough is enough. Coming on to my next lesson then, life is just a lot more simpler when you don't hold grudges and you can kind of just let things go. It doesn't mean that you forget, but it's nicer to just kind of keep things calmer, you know, civil if it has to be. But yeah, next point as well is that life is just too short to not let the people who are special to you know that. So another lesson I've had to learn, and this is actually kind of through the hard way, but you often hear people saying, you know, be selfish, put yourself first, put your own happiness first. But I think in reality, sometimes it's actually not best to do that. I think when there are difficult situations or somebody close to you perhaps is going through a difficult time in their life, you should really recognize and just know when you need to be there for a person. So I think, of course, for most part, do put yourself first, but there are going to be instances where you probably shouldn't. This one might be a bit controversial, but I've actually grown to learn that education is not actually everything. Growing up, I really did believe that, and of course I did really try to rescore. And I think as I've gotten older, I found it hard to kind of realise that it isn't actually for everyone. But I have really learned, and especially through teaching, I've really seen everyone does just learn at a different pace, and that is okay. Some may excel early, some later, some just might really not be interested, and honestly that is also okay. It doesn't really actually define anyone's success. You hear those stories all the time where, you know, dropped out of school then did something really successful. Honestly, sometimes it might not be education for people, it might just be creative passions and things like that. So I think for some it might come later, for some never at all, but it really isn't the be all or end all. This brings me on to my next point, where actually nowadays there are so many different ways that you can make a living. I think what is just important though is that you are following your strengths and your passions, because the majority of your life is spent working. So you should then of course try and get some enjoyment where you can. I mean, to be honest, I've found that you're not going to enjoy things 100% of the time, all the time. But as long as it is for the most part, then I think you're winning. So 22, something I've had to learn the hard way is that if you are going to do something, then you should just really give it 100%. So I've been there on my placement year where in the first few weeks, I really didn't. I was honestly doing the bare minimum, and I was just not, it was just hard for me kind of to snap out of uni and go straight into work at that time. But I was actually really grateful that I was pulled up on it early on, and it made me recognise that actually I can still turn this around, and I did then really have such a successful year after that, and I've just really implemented that now into a lot of things that I do. So I've done really well in my current role, and hopefully I continue to do so. I just think if you are going to do something, you have to give something your time. Why not just give it your best? It doesn't mean 100% all of the time. I mean, sometimes you do maybe give 80%, other times 120, but I think just on the whole, as long as you are kind of giving it that max effort, or, you know, just trying your best, then that's probably the best you can do. Linking to that, I just think everyone also does just need some downtime. So some days you might not get through everything that you had planned, but it's honestly okay. I've learned that if you kind of put contingencies in place, so, you know, if you're wanting to do, say, 10 questions a day, but weren't able to do so, as long as you've got in 2 weeks, say, a catch-up weekend, where you can then go through anything that you've missed, it's just nicer to kind of feel as though you're getting back on track. You do just again need to think back to the bigger picture, think back to your goals, make sure things are realistic, and then yeah, it just makes you feel a lot better, but you also just then don't feel burnt out. Number 24, sticking to your word, it really does just go a long way. It also links to them being someone who, you know, just talks about doing something versus actually does it. I think it really does just add to your reputation. And for some people, it of course does really help them to voice what they're going to do, to kind of help with accountability. But sometimes I've learned is that it's just good to kind of be accountable to yourself. Internal happiness is always the key. It's not always easy to achieve. I think sometimes you need to just find what it is that does that for you. Sometimes I know you might think you need validation from others, but what I've actually realized is that there's probably not one thing that every single person would agree on. I think if you like a dress, for example, somebody else really just might not like it, and that's okay. That can just be applied to yourself as an individual, but really what matters the most is your own internal happiness. In reality, it's only yourself and your loved ones who do matter the most. 26, this is something that I love to say, but it's so important to strive for progress rather than perfection. I think doing this, it's likely to keep you happier and also more consistent in the long run. So this can be applied to, you know, the gym, your fitness goals, honestly just anything. Can of course be hard, but I think just don't put pressure on anything. What really helps me is just that having a strong routine, something that I absolutely love. A strong routine will actually just really implement this for you. And, you know, doing maybe a few minutes a day of something really will in the long run lead to that perfection, but in the meantime it will just be striving for that progress. And finally, number 27, if you made it this far, thank you so much. In fact, 27 is actually one of my favorite numbers to write because you get like the 2 with the loop and the 7 with the line. I don't know, I just love it, and I love odd numbers. But yeah, anyway, this is all linked to my birthday. I just think getting older is such a huge blessing. It really just doesn't define anything. You know, they say the 30s are the new 20s, and things are just evolving and changing all the time. I think just do the most that you can, just have the most fun, just really enjoy it, and most importantly, just nothing in life is guaranteed. So just, yeah, grab every opportunity and have fun along the way. So thank you for watching and hearing my 27 lessons. I've of course learned probably a lot more than this. Oh, Another lesson I've learned actually is also just not to cut my hair this short every year. I think I'm going to go for 2 haircuts a year now rather than 1. I hope there are things in here that you did find helpful, things that resonated with you. Anything that did or perhaps didn't, do just drop it below. Or any other lessons that you have, I would love to hear them. Yeah, it is my birthday today, so I am expecting that like. But yeah, any comments, drop them below, and I will definitely be back with more videos, so make sure you do subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Thanks.